Good morning, guys. Welcome back to Whispering Willow Farm. I feel like I haven't started with that in a while. But I'm in my favorite place today, and I want to show you guys my garden. We have not walked through the garden in a long time because I've been putting so much push on the high tunnel. I really just didn't realize, from scratch, ground that had never been messed with or anything. I just didn't realize how involved that was, the whole process off the grass, making sure the grass stays gone, irrigation, planting, weeding, all the things, which I really think God was kind of doing that to me, because I have been really trying to push to get our high tunnel up here, and I think that has set some really good realistic expectations on what I can expect. But with all the emphasis being on the tunnels lately, my garden has become neglected, and we are in the transition season, so that plays a big part too. I am leaving some things, and I've done a second planting of some summer things, but for the most part I am just gearing up and preparing for fall. So I wanted to show you guys just what the garden looked like. And I will also tell you, this is the ugliest my garden has ever been. I have never let my garden get to the state that it's in right now. And I have also never felt so much peace in my entire life. So I think that there's that good balance, and just know, at what point do you just get super overwhelmed that you decide just to step back and know that that's okay, and that's where I was. So I'm going to show you, and I'm going to hope that you guys have some grace with what it looks like. And I would also really want to know y'all's input. I'm trying to lay out where I want to put everything, and I think for the most part, two of the beds, I know what I'm going to put because there's some larger, brassica crops and stuff like that. But some of the other beds, I'm just scratching my head what do I want where and why? So grab your coffee or your cup of tea and let's go take a look. So my zinnias behind me are doing great. I actually saved the seeds for the first time from zinnias last night. I had a couple that had completely fallen over. I've been talking a lot about saving seeds on my Instagram, and I've been getting asked a lot of questions. So for instance, this little dead guy, I'll wait, and usually with the zinnia seeds, I've noticed they just literally fold over like that, and then I'll just pop the heads off, and then there are so many seeds. So I am tossing around the idea, because there has been such a seed shortage, saving all the seeds I can, particularly with the flowers, the zinnias, all my marigolds, stuff like that, and maybe hosting a small seed swap next year for people who just aren't able to get seeds, or if I hear of someone not being able to get seeds, knowing oh hey, I have some. I'm saving all my bean seeds and stuff like that. But these, they just keep on coming, and I've been pleasantly surprised at how beautiful they are. I've also I was out in the garden last week, and I was ripping off trellises, trying to clean them off, and I'm ripping and pulling and doing all the crazy things, and a bee gets, a big bumblebee, it gets stuck in my ponytail, and well, I kind of freaked out a little, and so it ends up stinging me on the top of my head. So there was I was supposed to clean out all the trellises last week. Then there's the beginning of the week I got stung by the bumblebee. I've never been stung by a bumblebee. 28 years old, that was the first time I experienced that. And I literally came inside and had mustard all in my hair, because that's what Nathan told me to do, and I was like, okay, sure. Then I resorted to lavender because that made more sense. But I was like, Nathan, I'm kind of scared to go out there during the day being all up in the bees' business, trying to tear down everything they're pollinating. So I was out here until about 9 o'clock last night, trying to still clear off the bean trellises whenever there were no bees around. As you can see though, this one had the cucumbers, so I cleared this off. And then this one is what housed the tromboncino, and now it's all clear. And I'm starting on that long one that had the beans, but I got most of that done. So Nathan went ahead, and even though I had torn up like all the bases of the old plants, like the cucumbers and the tromboncino and stuff like that, but he had to burn off the remainder, especially tromboncino. Like the squash bugs, I have never experienced squash bugs like I have this year. And at first I was really bummed, and then I was like, well, you know, the beginning of the season I had crazy aphid problems, and I treated it with neem oil, I think maybe twice, and then I had no more aphids. So for me, I make way more money on my tomatoes than I do, like, you know, my squashes and zucchinis. So I realized, okay, every year you deal with the pests in the garden. This year in my area, I've heard from lots of farmers that just the squash bugs, vine borers, things like that were way worse than in previous years. So I thought, well, at least my tomatoes are still doing well. I feel like that's something you have to figure out, like in gardening and farming, is not all your crops are going to do well, and there's some things you can't control. Like I can't control the squash bugs, and I was staying on top of it pretty well, like picking off the eggs, but then it just became like there were thousands of them, you guys, like thousands. I'd come out here and I was like, what in the world? And Charlie would walk and she's like, Mom, there's a squash bug. Mom, there's a squash bug. I'm like, I know, I can't get rid of them. So we ended up like burning off all the trellises because I needed, if I pulled them out, they were just gonna run somewhere else, and I didn't want them running to my tomatoes or anything like that. So we just burned them, like literally torched them, and it worked really well. And if you are dealing with crazy pest pressure like that, I would recommend doing that. And then if you have a diseased plant, like I pulled out some diseased tomatoes, you don't want to throw those in your compost bin because you don't want to put that disease back into your soil. So I would recommend just ripping those plants out, putting them in a particular spot, and just burning them off. It really just is the best way to deal with that issue. Here are some beans that I planted a while ago, and these two are doing really well. This one had another plant over here, I don't even remember what it was, but it was just like kind of choking out. So once I've cleared all of this, so this had the cherry tomatoes in it and then the cucumbers at the end, it's gonna allow these just to breathe a lot more. I also had this little guy completely laid over, so I decided to take one of my tomato cages and just prop it up. And I'm gonna let this go. I can't rip out peppers that are still like doing stuff, so I'm letting that one go. So Nathan and June came out here the other night and they planted, well, Nathan, Ivy June just accompanied. He went ahead and replanted all of my trellises. So I've got beans, another round of beans on all of my trellises, except the big one. And that's just because beans are super easy. If you wanted to do another crop, like another summer crop, you could do cucumbers. Since I had such pest pressures with the cucumbers and the squashes, I'm not doing any of those for fall. I just don't think it would be the smartest thing. Like I just want to try to take out anything in that family. So we just decided to do beans again. It'll be really pretty. They'll produce up until the frost kills them. And I've got the back half of this, sorry that sounds, I got it ripped off, but then this half I still don't have ripped off. So that's what I'm going to finish doing today. As you can see, we've got our little gorilla cart. But we planted this side. We still have to go through and plant the other side. I spy a dog that might have gotten in my beds. What in the world? And then last night I came out here too, and so this half of the trellis I've completely ripped up. There are no more tomatoes on this half, and it feels pretty good, if I'm being honest. They had just quit producing, starting to get some sort of disease. They just didn't look well. But then we have dun, 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 this half that is like crazily still producing. I don't even know, it's like they won't stop, and I really need to amend this bed. So that's when you're like, do you let them keep going, do you not? But I mean, they just look so good. I have quit pruning them. I have not done anything to them, honestly. As you can see, this is wild. These are just wild, and they are producing left and right. So I have a hard time ripping them out. Look at them. I mean, just tomatoes everywhere. I feel like I would be silly. This is one of those things my grandma would be like, now honey, don't you rip out good tomato plants. So I'm not. I'm just gonna let them keep going, because seriously, they are everywhere. So what I think I'm going to do actually is, I've got my starts inside. Brought a spider web with me. I've got my starts inside, like my cabbage, my broccoli, my cauliflower. I won't move any of those outside until like mid to late September. I want to make sure that they are established enough. I want to make sure that it's not too hot, that when I put them out here, they're immediately going to die. We'll do a hardening off process and things like that. But that means I've still got quite a while, potentially even around a month, to still let those just produce. And I think that's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to let those hang out, and for as long as I can, get everything off of them. For the rest of those, I'm probably just going to, I've just been coring them and slicing the bottom and freezing them as I get them, because it's not huge, like, you know, 20-30 pound harvest at a time. I'm getting maybe 10-15 pounds at a time. So I'm just popping those in the freezer and waiting, and then we're going to start making some more diced tomatoes, you know, tomato sauce, salsa, things like that. So I think that's what I'm going to do. And I've went back and forth, just rip them out, and then I really just had that, oh, what would my grandma say? And I was like, my grandma would tell me not to rip out my tomatoes. So I'm not, and I know that I've still got that window. Some of these other beds, I know, especially this bed, this first bed right here that had my cherry tomatoes, y'all saw throughout the season, like none of my tomatoes did well. Like my cucumbers really didn't do well. So I know that like that bed needs a lot of amendment. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to come in with like a broad fork and just loosen up the soil, but it's really compacted right now, and then like the feather mill down. And feather mill is really like nitrogen based fertilizer. It's an organic fertilizer. Now my tomato bed had a ton of nitrogen, so I don't know that I'm going to use feather mill on that, but for everything else I feel like it just needs it. And I've used feather mill in the tunnel, and it's done really well. And several of my friends use feather mill as their like amendment and have had really good success. It is literally the powder of the feathers of a chicken. They grind it all down into a feather, like the feathers, they grind it all down into a powder. My chickens are going crazy. I just see them in the chicken coop. So I feel like that on the beds that I have a lot of the stuff cleared out, I'm going to really put an emphasis on amending them. And like this bed that I was talking about, I'm just going to focus on amending it, giving it what it needs, doing everything to the soil that needs to be done. And then this will be one of those beds that I just use for root vegetables. And that's something else I'm getting asked a lot, what we're starting, what that looks like. So tons and tons of brassicas, kohlrabi. I'm even growing rutabagas for the first time this year. And usually I would say direct sow a rutabaga, but I've heard that transplanting them works really well. And I don't have a direct seeder. I'm borrowing one from one of my friends, but especially if you are trying to seed a huge space and you don't have a direct seeder, for me it's a lot easier just to transplant them out. So like with beets, for instance, you know, I would probably recommend direct sowing that. I have a really high success rate transplanting them out, and it's a lot easier for me to space them correctly and get as much in a smaller space when I can physically see it, you know, instead of just like those little seeds. I feel like it gets missed all the time with me. But y'all just missed a butterfly. This space right here, Charlie loves it too. So this is what I'm thinking. This is where I need y'all's help. This bed, I've got some green beans and a pepper plant at the end. and all of these. So I guess it doesn't matter, but just fill these bad boys up with just the root vegetables on all of these, and then the 2 big beds do my bigger brassicas. We are going to put row cover too, and that's something I recommend you guys look into. It just helps with the pest pressures, the cabbage worms, things like that. Sorry, it's so sunny. It's actually really early here, but the sun is already, it feels great. It feels so great, but the sun is already out. So we'll take down this trellis system that we have for the tomatoes and end up putting like PVC pipe wire and putting down row covers just to make sure that all of our cabbages and things like that, our cabbages really take a hit towards the little cabbage worm. So that's what we'll do, and we'll just put it from the inside. We'll do a video on that showing how all that works. So yeah, I'm thinking some sort of root vegetable, all of this. Oh, I forgot to show you guys my corn. This was like not a garden tour at all, and here we are like going over all the things in the garden. This was hey, let's come hang out in the garden. I'll show you guys what I'm thinking about. And I have nonchalantly done a quick version of a garden tour. Do you see this? Do you see how tall this is? Some of this has not done well at all. And I have no idea how to like properly like take care of corn, like what to look for when it's ready. But I know even if I get 1 ear of corn for me, I'm gonna be like, yes, because I'm also starting pumpkins. First year I've ever grown pumpkins. I'm starting them for the kids. I got the jack-o'-lantern variety from Johnny's, which was on sale, so maybe go check that out. They were really, really affordable. And then I got another really cute, small, kind of ribbed white pumpkin that I think would just be fun to decorate with. So I'm like, if I can get 1 ear of corn to decorate with and grow my own pumpkins for my kids, I feel like it'll make like my mom points go up a little. So that's what I'm hoping for. But some of this corn, I mean, I don't really know what it will do. Nathan says it doesn't look that great. And back here, like something's munching on them quite a bit. I don't know, keep your fingers crossed. I'll keep you guys updated on what that does. So I still have these. I'm letting all dry out so I can save the seeds. This was such a magnificent sunflower, just like the height of it, how beautiful it was. So I'm trying, as you can see, I've cut some off, but I'm trying just to save all the seeds from these. So there's still some producing, so I'll wait until like all of them die before I rip them all out. And then I've got to clean off this trellis. This trellis is what had the cucamelons on it. And then this is the trellis that I'm thinking about putting the pumpkins on. And typically for a big pumpkin, I would say, well, don't trellis it because pumpkins get really, really big. But I got these really petite, I think that's a good word. I got these really petite, small pumpkins. So I think this cattle panel is heavy enough and sturdy enough that I can grow them on there and just be really, really intentional when I see them to make sure that where the pumpkin's actually going to grow is like coming through the block of the cattle panel. Like right here, you know, just, I think if I can be intentional with that, then it'll work. And I'll probably throw one like at the end of the bed down there. That way it can just grow out in the grass if it needs to. We have not had anything in the bed that we ripped all of our squash and zucchini out of over here. But as you see, it looks like a Jack and the Beanstalk. That is morning glory. I didn't even grow that. I didn't even grow the morning glory, and it is so invasive that it just shows up in my garden everywhere, every single year. I don't know how to get rid of it. Alright guys, the garden is a mess as you see, so I've got a full day cleaning off trellises, amending soil, things like that. But I just wanted to show you guys what's going on in our garden. The good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. So thank you guys for hanging out with me. I'll talk to you soon.